It's that time of the week again. Once again, Wednesday night. And it's Wednesday night, October the 21st. We're getting closer to Halloween, folks, so we're still rocking the Halloween-themed music. Dropping back to the chat here, we'll see. We got Suki in the house. Ohio Relic Hunter. Shout out to Mr. Bill. Oh, Darwin Gillespie. Very nice to see him. Been a while. Cool Beans. Shout out to Harv. Hopefully some of the other ones will be coming through. Let's see what's going on here real quick. We've got a caller, 315. Who do we have? Go ahead, caller. Hello. Once, twice. Goodbye. Okay, so we are here. You are back. We are live. We appreciate everyone for joining us once again to another hopefully exciting show. You are listening to Beyond Sight and Sound, metal detecting and treasure hunting radio for you, the always valued and appreciated listener. We have some folks who may not be in attendance tonight because they are already packed and on their way to the big event in Ohio. Me? Well, you know, I'm your host, Josh Kimmel. I haven't left for the dig yet, but I will be within hours. But first, we've got things to talk about. It's October. Come on. It's the month of ghosts, the month of Halloween, and I thought, hey, how cool would it be to get a show together and get some information on ghost town hunting? We looked around. Actually ran into a friend. I'm sure some of you people are familiar with a previous guest, Jim Ferriello. Very knowledgeable in the hobby. Great guy to talk to. A lot of time in the hobby as well. And happened to mention to him what was going on. And he says, you know what? And he says, this guy here, you need to contact. You need to reach out to him. See if he'd be interested in being on the show. I think he'd be a great guest to have on your show. Well, you know how it goes. Some of our best guests have come from listener referrals. Maybe Facebook users on the Beyond Sight and Sound group say, hey, you know, check this person out. Well, here we are again. I made a few phone calls, and sure enough, the gentleman contacted me. And tonight, we get to talk about ghost town hunting and some of those experiences that go along with it, research, techniques, all of that, the whole ball of wax, with Mr. Frank Pandozzi. Really great guy to talk to, a lot of time in the hobby, and very informative on a subject such as this one. So we should probably forego everything else and get him in here as well. How is it going, Frank?
Great to appreciate you having me on, Josh. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well, and hope all of the listeners are doing well, and I hope they have a good time this evening.
Yes, hopefully they do. I see we've had a few more drop in that are regulars. We've got Stryker in the house, MD Smiley. And for those who are wondering, I'm solo tonight with Frank. The Dirt Bandit is not around. He's trying to rest up to hopefully make that big hunt. But he does say to tell the listeners he misses everyone and dig it all. So that's what's going on with Kenny. But back to you, Frank. I gotta know, reading your websites and your pages, you have got decades of experience in the hobby. How long have you been in this? When did you first get into it?
I actually started metal detecting back in the mid-'70s. And I started out like most newbies coming into the hobby. I picked up a real inexpensive metal detector, and I started detecting around parks, schoolyards. I've always been a history lover. I think that's the driving force behind my metal detecting is I'm really interested in holding in my hands relics and artifacts from years gone by. It's just an excitement for me, as I'm sure it is for most of the listeners. But I was finding that the common coins and the small pieces of jewelry that were being found inside those parks and those schoolyards was just not doing it for me. So after a couple of years, I started to research areas outside of parks, outside of schoolyards, and started talking to people. And I've always been a voracious reader. I read quite a bit. I love reading. I love researching. I love history. And that led me to begin metal detecting around the old cellar holes in the East. I was a hunter for many years, and I could remember during many of my hunts, I would come across these depressions in the ground in the middle of the woods. And at the time, I never paid much attention to them. But down the road, when I started researching cellar holes and ghost towns, I realized that those years past when I was out there hunting for deer especially, those old cellar holes that I was passing by were actually foundations in old ghost towns from 150, 200 years ago. So I would go back to those. When I started metal detecting the old cellar holes and the old ghost towns, I went back to those areas that I had first found while I was hunting. And then I just, from there, just expanded my knowledge and got better at what I was doing, and it became, ghost town hunting actually became a passion, to which actually led to my first television show some 25 years later. We did, I have to think now, I believe it was 5 half-hour shows on metal detecting ghost towns of the East. And from there, it's been exciting.
Right, I would say. And more that with doing, making this transition, I guess, for lack of a better term, from, say, the park hunter to, hey, I want something more out of this hobby. I'm sure that was not anything that came overnight. You found that it took some practice. You had to kind of refine your skills, in a sense.
Yeah, it took some time. When you're metal detecting a park and you're metal detecting schoolyards, there's some junk in the ground. I mean, there's some scraps that you have to deal with. The biggest transition is when you get into the ghost town hunting, the cellar holes. There's a lot more trash at a lot of these areas that you have to deal with, and many times to be successful, you have to go back, or I did. I would go back 7, 8, 9 different times to the same cellar hole and remove that trash before I started finding the good stuff.
Right.
So that's something that I had. It was the patience that I had to learn in order to become successful with that.
Yes, it truly is a virtue in metal detecting. You've got to be patient. You've got to be willing to dig the bad targets to get to the good. Did you find going out to these ghost towns that your hunting style somewhat changed, like maybe from the public park to the, say, cellar hole of a ghost town? Did you open up your discrimination pattern more, or maybe you used a little more discrimination?
Well, as far as discrimination goes, I pretty much dialed down my discrimination early on in the hunt. I don't discriminate as much. As the day goes on or the hours go on and the more tired I get and I know that I'm going to go back to that cellar hole, I will, I'm sorry, it's just the opposite, will not discriminate as much. Mm-hmm. And then I will dial the discrimination down or up towards the end of the day. So I would vary my discrimination as the day went on. If I missed stuff the first day or the second time I'm out there or the third time, it didn't bother me because I know I would be going back. I also learned while I've been doing these ghost town sites, I've also learned to become a little bit more critical in my search efforts. And what I mean by that is I grid off every area that I do at a ghost town site without fail. For instance, if I'm at a cellar hole that maybe is 300 feet by 300 feet, I'll walk in and I will take that first 25 feet and I will grid off and I will swing my coil over every single square inch, and I don't move on to the next 25 feet until that whole first 25 feet is covered. That way I know I'm not missing anything.
Right. Now, do you find yourself, like, maybe you'll cover, say, one section of the grid, and then you'll go to the next one, or maybe hit that same section from a different direction, or maybe come at it from a different direction the next trip out?
The next trip out. If I finish, very rarely do I finish an entire cellar hole the first time by gridding. It may take a couple of times to finish it. The next time I go back, I will go back from a different angle and grid it once again.
Okay. And I'm assuming...
Also, Josh, what's important is many times over the years I've gone back to cellar holes that I have done multiple times with a larger coil, with my standard coils, and I've gone back with the small 3-4 inch coils, and I found items that I had missed previously.
Right. You may be even a little bit of a mind reader, because I was just about to ask, I'm sure with your experience in the hobby, you've used many different machines. Do you find that maybe swapping to a larger or smaller coil, or even another machine with a different frequency or multi-frequency, that you wind up the particular grid spot that you may have hit before continues to produce?
You know, I'm going to say something here that is probably not going to resonate with a lot of the listeners. To answer that question, I have used just about every major metal detector on the market. I've been doing this for so many years. I'm also a metal detector dealer. I've sold every manufacturer's metal detector out there. I've used them all. And I will say that it is not the detector that finds the stuff. It's the person who uses the detector. So the detector, it makes no difference to me whether I use a White's, a Garrett's, or a Tesoro in those areas. Okay. If that stuff is there, I will find it with either one of those metal detectors.
Right.
It's the coil that makes the difference.
Yes, that does make sense, and really that doesn't sound as far-fetched to the listeners as one may think, because we're big on saying that the metal detectors in its own, doesn't matter what brand, what manufacturer, they're all designed to find metal, but that machine is only going to be as good as the user operating it and their experience level.
Absolutely. I know fellows, and I've hunted with them, who have machines that cost $1,000. They have all the bells and whistles. I will walk right behind them with a $250 machine and find stuff that they have missed. I've done that, and we joke about it, because these fellows are talking about how good their metal detectors are, how deep they are, but they don't know how to use them correctly, and they miss stuff.
That's what I was just going to ask, was do you notice that they're swinging maybe too fast or arcing, or maybe even it's one of these folks that, you know, the ones that have their coil 6 inches above the ground?
All of those things. All of those reasons. Yes, all of those. And I've detected with many people from all over the country, and I've seen professionals use very inexpensive machines find relics that individuals could not find using, as I said, $1,000 machine.
Right.
So it's all in the operator.
I agree. We've got a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Josh, good evening. This is Stryker from Illinois. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, sorry to hear the way it sounds. You're not making the dig.
Yeah, they got to play with my blood pressure a little bit more before they get it right, so I just didn't want to take the chance on going.
Well, better to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I couldn't risk. I couldn't risk getting mouth to mouth from you in the field. That would just be embarrassing.
Well, you may have to watch Swansea. You got a question or comment for Frank?
Yes, I do. Frank, how are you, sir?
Good. Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. You know, I'm fascinated with what you do. I'm just curious on. I know this is probably going to be a vague question, but I'll take a shot at it. What's the majority of the things that you find in a ghost town, or like what you're hoping to find in a ghost town?
Well, it could be anything from, the older coins,
Right.
just small caches. We found, there have been times that we have found jars of, granny caches, mason jars with coins in them. Lots of jewelry, old-time jewelry, ornaments from homes, whether they're doorknobs or hinges, all collectible items as far as I'm concerned. There's just no telling. Now, here in where I live in New York, the further east we go towards the Hudson and the New England states, the finds, especially the coins, are a lot older. And when I say older, you get more of the silver. God, I'm lost.
Like the
words.
reals?
You get the reals because that was the area that was settled first, and the further west you move, the items, the coins are not as old. Still exciting to find, but that's the major difference. But you just never know what you're going to find, and that's the beauty of it. Now, some of these, I will tell you, some of these cellar holes, some of these ghost towns, and when I say ghost towns here in the east, there may be, a ghost town may have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 cellar holes within a 2-mile radius. That was one town. Mm-hmm. Some of these areas, we'll go in there and we won't find anything. I mean, nothing but maybe a piece of junk iron. But no relics, no coins, no jewelry. And the reason why is, especially in the northern part of the state, or the northern part of the far eastern states,
right.
The weather was so cold when they moved in, they just couldn't stand it. They couldn't stay, so they only stayed a few years. They would put the time and the effort into building a home, found out that they couldn't handle the cold weather, and then they would leave.
Yeah, and most of them, like in the beginning, like before they decide also, which I envy of the type of detectoring you do, is they'd set up the tents or the half-built buildings where they were building the town, and that would explain why you'd be finding a lot of cash, finds, like in the main roads, because I'm sure in the beginning that they'd set up these, as like these tents first, either waiting on lumber or maybe a railroad to come through or wagons to bring in wood, so they could start the buildings.
Yeah, it's not like you can just roll into town and expect to deposit your money at the bank while you build your house when there's nothing there.
No, and a lot of those first pilgrims that came over from Europe, they didn't have a lot on them in the first place.
Right.
I mean, when they lost a large cent or a 2-cent piece, that was almost a life savings to them.
Oh yeah.
It was very a very traumatic loss.
Yeah, they've had a few stories which I love it, where they would, the next town over, or if they finally got their communications set up, they would usually have, like, they'd ask the army or whatever at that time that they used to have 2 guards standing by actually where the bank would be, and it would be a tent, and people would keep their money in there constantly under guard.
Yeah. It's amazing. It was a very tough lifestyle, and to think that you see, I don't know what area you're from, but in most of the eastern states, where most of these cellar holes or most of these ghost towns are, a good way to find them is to notice the old stone walls that actually was the property line of that particular homestead. These individuals, by hand, had to dig those stones out of the ground, move the stones, and build a wall. Besides build their house, they were always working, day and night. That's all they were doing. And these individuals were not big people. I would assume that most of the men at that time were probably 5 foot, 5'2", made 130 pounds.
Exactly.
Wow.
As compared to today.
Yeah, so it was a lot of blood and sweat when you see these walls.
Yeah, just to build the walls. Some of these walls go on for, miles.
Right.
Around the property.
And
well, yeah, because, again, by their size and everything, it would take so long for them to, and the equipment to make the fencing and stuff like that, because obviously the rocks were already there, and, so they just, they'd start out using them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, here in New York, here in the East, we know for a fact that those rocks were not laying on top of the ground. Those rocks were in the ground, and they had the rocks in. They had to pull those rocks out and then move them. And many times when we walk upon these cellar holes, we will see piles of rocks that they removed that they never got to. They just left them there.
Oh, wow.
And they're still there to this day. Yeah.
Right. And
well,
some of them, I guess, maybe got there if they were trying to plow up a small garden or something and hit it, get the rock out of the way, and keep working.
Either that or they dropped dead of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, I wanna thank you very much for being the guest on Beyond Sight and Sound. Josh usually has a very good show, and I'm very glad that you had time to make it on the show.
Well, thank you, Striker. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I'm originally from Maine. That's where my mom still lives, but when I got out of the service, I ended up staying here, and I still live in Illinois, but I'll be going back there shortly. So.
Oh, super. Nice day.
Have a good night. Thanks again, sir.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for the call,
Josh,
Greg.
take care, Josh.
You too. That does make sense, though. Watch for those old rock walls and stuff. I know a lot of the cellar hole hunters out in that area, that's basically a lot of times what they're doing. They may see something on a map that kind of leads them to believe there may be something in that area, and then they'll just go and walk and keep an eye out for any sort of remaining wall or anything that remotely looks like a cellar hole.
Yeah, there's telltale signs that when you become experienced enough in finding these, there's telltale signs that you look for that will lead you to a cellar hole or to an old ghost town. The ones that we like to find are the ones that are not noticeable from the road, because those are the ones that are already been detected.
Those are the ones that everybody's going to hit first.
Yeah, we find the ones that are way off the beaten path, and we know how to do that. There's tricks to finding them. These are the ones where there have no roads have been through there in hundreds of years.
Right.
And those are the ones that are sometimes the search for the cellar hole and finding these cellar holes is just as much fun as it is detecting them.
Oh, I can understand that for sure. We've got another caller, actually. Go ahead, caller.
Hey guys. Hey Josh, this is Bill.
Oh, Ohio Relic Hunter.
Yeah, I had to call in. I've been waiting on this show for a couple of weeks here. Got a couple of quick questions for Frank.
Shoot.
Frank, currently, well, for the last 2 years, my group and I have been digging an old eastern ghost town, and we found 17 foundations. And anyway, the one thing that is lacking, do you have any information that we could use on locating the privy pits? We just can't find them.
And you can't find them for any of the cellar holes?
No. I of course, do my, for lack of better words, orbit around the site, and run the iron out and everything. And I know there's a kind of a basic rule of thumb that it's 99 feet away from the house and obviously downwind. And we can't find any depressions or any signs of any of them anywhere.
That's interesting.
There have been times where we've been on cellar hole sites where we cannot locate the privy either. We know there had a privy. I mean that's, they were there.
Right, everybody needs one.
1790 to 1839, that'd be a long time to hold it, so I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah. So we can't, there's no disputing the fact that there are privies there. A lot of them were just filled in and over when. Now let me ask you this first off: the sites that you're hunting, are they on state land? Are they on private property? Are they CCC areas where they came in and reforested? Do you know what the history?
Yes, I do. They're kind of both, and that would lead me into my second question later on. They are on state land, which we have a permit for. Need to mention that right off the bat.
There you go. Right. Good man.
And something else I've noticed, it's not the normal cellar holes. All these sites are built next to a natural spring or a brook of some type. So I'm wondering if they didn't use that as a natural, sanitation back in the day, and they didn't have a traditional privy built.
No, I would almost suspect that a lot of those privies and a lot of those sites were covered up when they excavated, when they were planting the trees. A lot of that dirt and that soil was moved around, right, and they flattened a lot of the area out. So when they were moving the dirt, what happened was they actually covered up the privy. The privy is actually, the top part of the privy is actually maybe 1 foot to 2 feet deeper than normal because of the excavation. That's what happened during the CCC time. That's why a lot of them can't be found.
Now, for something like that, I mean, I know you've got another question for him the way it sounds, Bill, but for something like that, would it be advantageous to maybe go in with a probe and just kind of spot check a few areas?
Well, what we do is we'll just shovel. We'll just grab our shovel and just start shoveling, especially if there's a lot of trash in the area. A lot of the privies were used as trash sites. I mean, that's where they would dump their trash, and that's obviously, well, that. That's why you want to dig the privies. Exactly. But what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and just take a chance and just start digging, just like if you were on a bottle site. Start digging down and keep widening the hole and see if you can't come up with anything.
Right. Well, personally, I've been out there more than the rest of the group, and I have done a little bit of probing, but it's a sensitive area because it's in a state park, basically. I don't want to mention the name of it because we're not yet. But, obviously, once I find it, I can apply for a special permit to dig it out, but I can't dig until I apply for the special permit.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, I was just, curious if there'd be any signs, as far as visual, something that I'm not. Okay.
No, you know what? I've been doing this. Like I said, my first cellar hole was 40 years ago, and I've been doing it the same way. There's no tricks to finding that privy other than just going out there. And if you think you got an area, you just grab a shovel and you just start digging.
Okay.
It's you know,
I'll have to
yeah, that's
refine or invent a new process to it. I mean, it's pretty rough out there.
I know. I know. I'm
my,
there.
I'm sorry. My second question is, do you know of any databases? I know the Army kept meticulous records. I've been on your site for years, your website. Do you know of any databases or anything that the Army would list of approximate location of the Triple C camps? I know where I found one accidentally. I call it an original honey hole. We've got 40-some silver coins and tons of stuff out of the place. I found out after the fact, you know, through some research, that it was a Triple C camp. And
they do have that information, but last I checked, they weren't giving it out.
Okay.
And I don't. Yeah, there is information out there as to where the CCC camps are in every state, but the information has not been made public. There are a few.
I've been coming up with searching.
Yeah, there are a few websites out there that list some of the CCC camps, but not all of them. That's a question that's been asked many times over the years as to why that information is not being made public. There should be public information. I mean, it's part of history.
I'm just wondering if there was maybe a confidentiality clause, because most of the guys out there working the Triple C camps were teenagers at the time. They'd have to protect them, you know.
That may be, and I thought about that, and that very well may be the reason why. But other than that, I don't know what the answer is.
Okay, good deal.
The only way, the way that we have found CCC camps is just by going out there and asking questions. Talk to the old timers. Yeah, that's the way.
Yep, that's how I found. I've got one as soon as the brush dies off that I want to go out and hit, and it came from an old timer, you know, grew up in the area, and he remembers when they were out there working. And it's not 5 minutes from my house, so we got permission for that property also. We just got to wait on the underbrush to die off. So.
Yeah, well, that's the way to do it. Just talk to people. You know, when it comes to metal detecting, a lot of times I have people emailing me and blogging me and asking me questions when I'm out speaking about, you know, they're tired of not finding places to metal detect. It seems like, you know, they can't get past the schoolyard or the park. And I keep telling them the same thing. If you go out there and you talk to the old timers and you ask them, where did they picnic? Where did they party? You know, where did you go to? Did you go to any outside dances? Where was the swimming hole that you swam in when you were a kid? If you ask questions and you read the old time history books of your area, you'll have more places than you'll have lifetimes to get at.
Absolutely right. And I understand that completely, and I'm taking full advantage of it, believe me. I've been at it for a long time. So, you know, I've picked up tricks over the years. So.
Yep, that's exactly the way to do it.
Okay, well, that was it for me. So I appreciate you answering the question. Josh, great show. And hey, by the way, Josh, I'll catch you probably sometime Friday in person.
Yes, you will, sir. You just have to look for the Beyond Sight and Sound shirt.
You too. We'll find you.
All right. We'll see
All right, guys.
you,
Thank you very much. Bye.
That was an interesting question, though. I'm not real sure why those CCC camps are so well hidden. You're right. You do see them in some places on the internet, but even then, it's only in a limited form.
Yeah, they are. Every state. Every state has a few posted on the internet, but not all of them. And for the life of me, I just don't understand why. Maybe it is a confidentiality thing.
Right, that is an interesting aspect to bring up about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a good question. Like I said, though, I've been asked that question a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now, I'm assuming when you decided you wanted to do ghost town hunting, did you start out much like the rest of some of the rest of the hunters, where you were in fact hitting the ones near the road, or were you primarily going from your past in hunting, where you're going, oh yeah, I remember when I was out for deer, I saw this rock wall, I saw this foundation, I saw this cellar hole?
Yeah, that's a good question, Josh. Actually, I started out metal detecting the ones that I saw when I used to deer hunt, and the ones that you could find right off the road.
Mm-hmm.
And as I researched more, I read more, I learned about the area that I live in, the state that I live in. I realized that there were a lot more out there than just the ones that were right off the road.
Right.
And we learned to find those. It's a learning experience. I mean, it's like anything you do. You just
live and
the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah, you live and learn, and the further you go, the the sharper your skill set is, so to speak.
Yeah.
So once you started doing that way and kind of merging into this niche of the hobby, did you find like, oh, hey, I'm finding things, but it's still just not what I'm looking for. I want more. And that's when you started in with the research, or?
Well, the research was always there, but the research continued to grow. I then went from I started out schoolyards and parks. I migrated to ghost towns. I got better and better at that, and then into cache hunting, and being involved with the study of secret societies, mm-hmm. like the KGC and the Knights Templars. Understanding and reading about and seeing strange markings on rocks and why they were there and who put them there, and it's just, I started to expand my knowledge and my experience. I went from basically metal detecting to treasure hunting, I guess is what you can call it.
Right. Yeah, I can see, and that would be an interesting transition for many in the hobby to make. I'm sure that with the number of ghost towns and foundations and stuff that you've hunted, it's probably safe to say, without too much detail, that you've found a number of caches. Enough that you feel very comfortable in what you're doing, I would think.
I'm happy with my experience in metal detecting and treasure hunting. There's a lot more things that I want to do, and many more things that I want to find. There's things on my bucket list that I want to search for. By all means, I'm not finished yet. It's the thrill of the hunt. It's not necessarily the find. It's the research and the search leading up to the find that's exciting. That's the adventure for me. Josh, I got to tell you, I have seen things out there in the outdoors that most people in the industry is never going to get a chance to see. I mean, I've seen Egyptian hieroglyphics, pottery in certain states.
Wow.
I saw
have these been East Coast states by chance, or how does that work?
Yeah, believe me, Christopher Columbus was not the first one to set foot in the United States of America.
Oh, yes, I fully agree with that.
I've seen Roman coins on the Hudson River. Right. I know an individual who found, and I saw it, a sword, a sword from the Nordic times. It was found close to the St. Lawrence River in upstate New York. I've seen it in the Catskill Mountains. I've seen stones with strange hieroglyphics on it. I mean, there's just so much out there that most people would walk by and probably have and never notice it. But my experiences led me to look for that stuff.
Right, and you know, you that was kind of a truism that you had mentioned, is that for many of us, it's the thrill of it, because once we've made that find, we're like, oh, hey, that's cool, you know, but then it's in a pouch, in a container, whatever, it's off to the next find, because we want to find something else cool. And then you get home, you know, clean it up, preserve it, do a backstory to it, your research about it, and stuff like that. But ultimately, you know, once you've made that find, the feeling or the euphoria or whatever, once you've shut that plug up, it's short-lived, and it's time to find that next item.
Right. Yes, exactly. And but for me, it's one step further. I've never bought into the hype about American history and what we were taught in school. And if I can set out to prove the academia wrong, I want to do that. And as I said earlier, I had seen things out there that proves that Columbus was not the first one to set foot on the land of America.
Well,
and I'm not the only one that says that.
And if the history books are going to tell the story, that's great, but let's tell it the right way.
Exactly. Now, academia argues with me. You know, they'll argue with me. Archaeologists will argue with me, but that's fine. That's okay. I'm just going to continue to go out and do my thing.
Right, because if it's not an accepted theory, it's going to be scoffed and argued with.
Right.
And sometimes that's the way it goes until there's, you know, enough evidence to prove otherwise, I guess, or to where they don't have the opportunity any longer to choose to ignore it.
That's right.
I guess
Correct.
Would be a good way to put that.
Yeah.
With your ghost town hunting and your cache hunting that you've done with that, do you find these caches normally near, say, an identifiable area based off of the foundation? Because most caches, really, they weren't very deep, were they?
Right. Well, first, let me set the record straight. It's not like we go out all the time, and every time we go out, we find a cache. I mean,
right, yeah.
That just doesn't happen. As I said earlier, these cellar holes here in the East, when these people came over here, they did not have a whole lot of money with them.
Right. So
they just
even
did not
many
have
times, even if it was a cache, it may have only been a jar of just pennies.
Yeah, 4 or 5 coins.
Right.
Yep. Just for, there have also been times where pockets have changed. My detecting partner here, a bunch of years ago, at a cellar hole, 50 yards behind the cellar hole, out in the middle of nowhere, as he was detecting, he found 17 old coins within a foot square. So it's how they got there, we don't know. But that was a type of cache. I mean, those coins were lost. There was no leather in the area, old leather that may have been part of a purse, a pocketbook, or whatever. We don't know how they got there, but that was one type of a cache. But it doesn't happen all the time.
Right. It's still a number of coins in a concentrated area.
Yeah. As far as how deep they are, it could be these granny caches. Some of them are found in what used to be the garden area of the cellar holes, the home site, and that's where Mom used to go out, and she'd be working the garden and putting away in a jar just below the ground. Pocket change for later on or what have you. Those are called granny caches, and they may be anywhere from 3-4 inches to 8-10 inches deep. Not very deep, because for one main reason, that person wanted to get back to that jar and add to it.
Access.
Easy access. Yep. That's why it amazes me that so many people out there in the hobby, they're talking about got to have the deepest metal detector. My metal detector goes 10 inches. Mine goes 12 inches. Mine is this deep. That's nonsense. Most of the the best finds that I have ever found, or the fellows that I hunt with, around these cellar holes are anywhere from 2 to 6 inches.
Wow.
That's all. 2 to 6 inches.
Right, so for your area or that style, basically you've got to be the one that gets there first and gets lucky enough to get your coil over the target.
Yep. Josh, I found a couple of reels from the 1600s. They were 4 inches. You don't have to go 10 inches. You don't have to go 10 inches deep. That's nonsense. Unless you're looking for a known cache, that's different.
Right, that was, say, intentionally hidden, not for easy access.
Yeah, right, exactly. Those granny caches.
It's like they say, sometimes less is best.
That's exactly true. Yep, exactly. But these granny caches and these small caches are not. They're not deep.
Right.
And the other thing to remember when people are out there and they want to do these or detect around these ghost towns or these cellar holes, and they want to do cache hunting, is some of these caches were in areas that were marked either by a tree, a rock, or some kind of a marking where that person who hid that cache could remember where it was. So that's important. And sometimes these rocks have markings on them pointing in the direction as to where the cache was.
Right. That makes sense.
So
you just got to be able to decipher the symbol or what it's telling you.
Yeah, well, most of the people back in the day were just hiding a little mason jar, maybe full of coins or a few coins, with just scratch and arrow on a flat rock. I had a friend a few years back who showed me a picture that he found of a flat rock with an arrow on it and a cache of coins that it pointed to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're out there. You just got to have the patience to go out there and find them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I just had a story related to me the other day where a guy somewhere in the east, he had come across a signal. He dug down. I don't believe it was very deep either, and he pulled 13 large cents, all out of one hole. I believe they were primarily Drake bust.
Mm-hmm.
So they are out there. You can still find them. You just you may have to get off the beaten path, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, we find things where people were. Of course, that's history. To understand where we're going, we have to know where we've been, and that's what the research is for.
Yes, it's all about research. Absolutely.
I agree.
The hobby gets better for you the more research that you do.
Right. You get out of it what you put into it. If you don't put much effort into it, well, you may not get much out of it.
No, and that's true with anything in life.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a lot of fun. Go ahead.
Right. And with doing this ghost town hunting, the cellar holes, the foundations, and the such like that, For someone just getting into that sort of thing, like maybe they just got into the hobby, are there any like starting out pointers that you think, when you were getting into it years ago? Is there a couple of things that you can think of where you're like, man, if somebody would have just shared this with me, I'd have been so much further ahead?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that people should do is when they're driving around out in the country, is start noticing those cellar walls, those stone cellar walls, 3-4 foot high cellar walls, because that cellar wall means that at one point in time somebody built that wall 150, 200 years ago, and in that area is an old foundation. An old cellar hole. That's what you look for. And then the next thing to do is, obviously, if it's on private property, is just ask permission to go in there and look for that cellar hole. And maybe by asking the property owner knows where the cellar hole is. Obviously, if it's his property. And then from there, the more of those you do, then you can start researching, and you research by reading old history books of the area, the county that you live in, and maybe a town that you never heard of pops up in a book, and you go to an old map and you look for the town on an old map, maybe an old highway map or an old state map, and you see if you can't locate it, or an old topo, and that will probably lead you to an area that has old cellar holes or an old ghost town on it. And then from there you just start looking for telltale signs. And again, the telltale sign would be see if you can see some stone walls. Maybe the stone walls are down by now. Maybe they're not kept up. Maybe there's just a few rocks. Old maple trees. They always, those pilgrims, 9 out of 10 times planted maple trees because they wanted a maple syrup, and they wanted shade. And
maybe flowers that are out of context.
Yeah, the flowers, yep. If you're driving down the road and all of a sudden, if you're out in the middle of the woods somewhere, or you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you see a couple, 3-4 old maple trees. Old maple trees, and that should be a sign that there's got to be an old cellar hole around somewheres, because those trees are just not. Just didn't pop up out of the ground for no reason at all. Somebody had to plant those.
Right. Good advice. Yeah. Definitely good advice.
And then you get out and you start walking around. If it's on private property, you ask for permission. Then you start looking on the ground. Do you see any old pottery shards? Little pieces of pottery. If you do, then you're close. Do you see any old broken bottles or pieces of broken glass, sort of thick glass or colored glass? If you see that, then you know that there was an old homestead around somewhere. So there's telltale signs. There's things you learn to look for.
And I'm sure even for the newcomer into the hobby, if they would say, they catch the broadcast and they're like, wow, Frank had so much information, I'm taking this to heart, I'm going out and trying it next week, they may find that within, some time down the road after that, we'll say, that they find that subconsciously or something, they've become accustomed to noticing certain things with the land. Seeing the signs, so to speak.
Yeah, you become aware of what to look for the more you go out and you do it, and you'll be surprised what you'll find when you're out there looking. Sometimes you'll find one cellar hole. Sometimes you'll find 2, 3, 4, 5 within the same area. For anybody listening, really. If they haven't been to my website yet, metaldetectingghosttownsoftheeast.com, I've got over 400 pages on that website with all the information they need to get going, to get out there and to actually start metal detecting these cellar holes.
I can certainly attest to that. When I was going through writing the promo, I think I got just lost track of time through the duration of an afternoon just going through different pages on your site. There is so much information there.
Yeah, all the information's there. It's right there for them. I don't know. As a matter of fact, I know that there's nobody else on the internet that has that kind of information about ghost town hunting in the East than what I've got.
So I guess really the best tip for the newcomer getting into this is to go to your website.
Yeah, just go to the website. It's like having me next to them,
right
out in the field. I mean, all the information is there.
Yeah, I would say, because it is full of information.
Yeah.
Another thing, too, I guess, we can run over a little bit, I imagine. Hunting these ghost towns and stuff. I know we had spoke before the show about a few different things, and with it being close to Halloween and everything, have you seen anything strange during your endeavors or adventures out there that you may be inclined to share with the listeners?
Yeah, many times. I mean, I've had the hair stand up on the back of my neck in some of these places over the years, and it's not just me. It's the individuals who have detected with me some of these cellar holes that felt the eeriness as well. I'll give you one example. A bunch of years ago, we were out in the woods. I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere. We were looking for a ghost town. I would say we were about 2 to 3. We had hiked in about 2 to 3 miles off the road where we parked the truck. So we were in the middle of the Tules, and we're walking around. We're looking for a cellar hole. We couldn't find one. Probably an hour and a half went by, and my detective buddy said, "You know what, Frank?" He says, "You know what? I'm getting tired. I'm just going to lay down over here by this tree and just close my eye for 20 minutes. He says, just give me 20 minutes and wake me up. I said, all right, fine. I said, I'm going to walk over in this direction for a while. So I left him, and I'm continuing to walk. I'm looking for any signs of a cellar hole, and about 20 minutes later, I went back, and he was just waking up, and he said, geez, Frank, he said, I had the strangest dream. He said, I said, what? What do you mean? He said, well, I dreamt that there was this woman, she was back in probably the early 1800s, I would assume, looking at she lived in a log cabin, and she was standing on the front porch, and she was dressed in the garb that they dressed in back in the day, and she was ringing a bell, a dinner bell on the front porch, and she was going, Jason, dinner time. And I'm going, you know what? Yeah, that. If you could see my friend's belly, you would understand why I was laughing at him, because it's all he thinks about is food. I said, geez, leave it to you to start, have a dream about dinner time.
To have a dream about lunch.
Yeah. He said, no, I'm serious. He said, Jason, it's dinner time. And I remember seeing this little boy. He was just a young boy. He ran up to her, and they ran in the house, and I woke up. I said, okay, strange dream. Let's go find a cellar hole. About 15 minutes later, we came across, we see these once in a while. It was a tombstone. And it was one tombstone. It was a small tombstone, and it was tipped over on its side. And I said to John, geez, look at this. I said, this is right out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there must be a cellar hole nearby. It looks like maybe this was part of a family plot.
Right.
And we went over, and I read the inscription, and it said, Jason, age 7, died 1822.
Oh,
and Jason,
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole time that we were walking around this area, prior to him taking his nap, we both kept saying, this place is eerie. You feel kind of funny. I feel funny. You feel funny too. Yeah, I feel funny. And then he has that dream, and we come across that one tombstone. I will tell you that we both turned around and left.
Okay, it's time to go.
Yeah, it was getting to be kind of late in the day anyways, but, and we never went back to that site either. But
So
that's just one strange incident.
Yeah, so that one was just a little, had the hair standing up a bit too much, right?
Yeah. So, a proper story for Halloween month.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. I was going to ask if you guys had wound up finding the cellar hole then, but then again, I can guess.
No, you know what? I don't know if there was one there or not, but we never did. We didn't look any further.
Right, you're kind of going, I don't know if it was there or not, but we had seen enough.
Well, and not only that, as I said, we probably hiked in maybe 3 miles, and it was starting to get late in the afternoon, and it was in the fall of the year. It starts getting dark early, and we wanted to make sure that we could find our way out, because we had been lost before in the woods. I was lost one time alone, a few years ago. I'm pretty good in the woods, but you don't want to be messing around. So we hightailed it out of there.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was quite freaky.
Well, it certainly sounds like you have had quite a number of experiences in your ghost town hunting, as well as the experiences just in the hobby in general. I mean, I kind of feel like we've hardly even scratched the surface here. Another thing real quick, though, you said that you, even after, 40 years probably in the hobby?
Yeah,
you still have, you've still found that you have bucket list items you'd like to knock off.
Yeah, I do.
Does any of them kind of pop to the top of the list for you?
No, not really. There's some caches that I've been researching for many years that I would like to search for. Right. There are some there. There's some topics. I'm also an author, and I've got 2 books that I'm trying to finish. So there's some research in the books that I'm writing that are on my bucket list. That I need to research further, that has to get done, and that all has to do with treasure hunting and history. There's some areas of the country that I want to see, that I want to search as well.
Understand. And this isn't necessarily your first go-around with trying to write a book. You've written, at least one previously, haven't you?
Well, I've got a few out there. I've written 2 small novellas, Solomon's Gift and Northside Story. Those had nothing to do with metal detecting or treasure hunting.
Right.
One was about a town where I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and the other one was about a friendship between an older fellow and a younger man, and how the older fellow brought the younger boy into manhood, kind of showed him his ways. And I've got, 5 or 6 ebooks that I've written. And I've got 2 novels on treasure hunting and history that I need to get finished. I've been working on those a while.
Nice.
So I've got a lot of pokers in the fire.
Right. Yeah, very busy with that. Still trying to get out and hunt, and also very active in Watts.
Yeah, Watts is it's important that people understand that there are laws that have to deal with what we do, relic hunting, and if you break these laws, depending on where you are, what state, what city, what town, and how disciplined they are, you can get arrested and go to jail. I've because of the problems that I had when I was filming, the archaeologist came down on us for filming, thinking that we were breaking the law by showing people how to dig for relics. I learned a lot over the last 10 years about the laws of artifacts and relics, and whether you should dig them or not, and where you can dig them and where you can't. And from there, I've also had the opportunity, unfortunately, to talk to people who have contacted me from all across the country who've been arrested for digging illegally. It's something that the hobbyist needs to be aware of. And again, if they go to my metal detecting website, Metal Detecting Ghost Towns of the East.com, I have a metal detecting laws page, and it's pretty concentrated.
Yeah,
there's a lot of information there.
A lot of information.
There's a lot of information. I don't know of anybody in the industry who has more information about the laws than I do. That's why it's number one on Google's list as far as metal detecting laws. It's been number one or number two for the past, 10 years. I get a lot of traffic to that page. But yeah, I here in New York State, I'm a director of lots. Anything that happens in the state, any new laws or any people that have problems or whatever, they can contact me, and we go to there and try to rectify it, try to get laws changed. So I've been involved with that for the past about 8 years or so.
Very nice. And no time, not any time soon, are there any plans of getting out of that or the hobby the way it sounds?
No. I'll probably die with my metal detector in my hand.
There you go. Words to live by.
I mean, they have to put me in a, even, God forbid, if something would happen where I couldn't walk, they'd have to find a wheelchair for me with a metal detector holder on it.
That's right.
So
and if God forbid something like that would happen, I've got people you can talk to that can do it too.
Yeah, I'm sure I can find somebody. Josh, it's really the greatest hobby out there. I mean, there is no hobby, believe me, I've done it all. There is no hobby out there that can give you the satisfaction that metal detecting does. Not only does it give you the satisfaction of possibly finding something, but the exercise that you get without knowing it. An hour goes by from swinging your detector, or you're walking, you're bending, and if you hike through the woods and you're carrying your metal detector as well, and might be carrying a pack, that's all exercise. I mean, it's a great way to stay in shape. The hobby can actually help pay for your metal detector and your fines. It's the greatest hobby out there.
Oh, absolutely. And you also reap the benefit of enjoying the great outdoors, not staying home, sitting on the couch, glued to the TV.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just too bad that for many people who get in it, the newbies, if I sell 10 metal detectors, 9 out of those 10 people, they'll use their metal detector 1 or 2 times and give up. They put it in the closet and it collects dust for a lifetime. 1 out of 10 people stay in the hobby.
Right. And I've said myself before many times that sometimes I don't think it's necessarily the people that are really into the hobby, that really have the passion. It's not so much that we choose the hobby as it is the hobby chooses us, I think.
Yeah, the hobby does kind of choose us. It does. It does. I mean, for there are a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but there are people who have gotten into the hobby for the wrong reasons, and they didn't last. They get in because they think they're going to find all kinds of coins, silver coins and gold coins and relics and caches and make a living off of it. It doesn't work that way. They find out that doesn't work that way, and they end up giving up the hobby. That's not the reason to get into it. And I think you have to have...
They
ahead.
do seem to get discouraged quickly at that point.
Yeah, they do. And I think you need a little bit of a love of history as well in order to keep you going within the hobby. Again, for me, there's nothing like pulling a relic out of the ground that hasn't been touched by human hands for 150 years, 200 years or more, and wondering how it got to that spot.
Right. And being able to help continue the story of that item.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's still a lot that I want to do. Hopefully, and God willing, I'll be able to. I stay healthy and continue on.
Right. Absolutely.
And there's a lot of great people in the hobby too, and that's another kind of a side benefit as well, because you do meet a lot of good people, and the for me, as well as the people, and the people that I hunt would say the same thing. A lot of the fun is actually going out and detecting with somebody else, because even if you don't find anything, it's interesting and exciting to watch the person that you're with find something.
That's very true. That is very true.
Yes. So it's rewarding. The hobby is rewarding in many aspects.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Yeah. Would you like to let people know where they can find you? Your, say, your websites, any other social media, stuff like that?
Well, the one website is the one I've been mentioning. Is it's a long URL. It's Metal Detecting Ghost Towns of the East.com. And it's dash between each word, so it's metal detecting ghost towns of the East.com. If they Google my name, Frank Pandozzi, okay, everything will pop up. My websites, all the information. Exploring History's Treasures is the website about the television show. The television show was actually, the series was called Exploring History's Treasures. So that website is exploringhistoriestreasures.com. And I do have a Facebook page. And it's, again, Frank Pandozzi.
Okay.
Okay. And anybody who wants to contact me, if they go to that Metal Detecting Ghost Towns of the East.com, there is a contact page, contact form, where they can send a comment, and it'll come to my email.
Very good. It sounds like there are definitely plenty of areas where people can meet you at, as far as like locating you on the internet to contact you.
Unfortunately, I'm easy to find. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just that it's sometimes it's not good, but it is. If you go, it's easy to find. Yeah. The television show. You were talking. You had mentioned before that. I've been fortunate enough to do a lot and see a lot within the hobby, and
yes, absolutely.
I got to be honest. I got to be honest with you, Josh. The reason why is because that television show that I started, 8 years ago, when it was on for a couple of years, just opened up a lot of doors and some super avenues, because I was contacted by many people from across the country, giving me the opportunity to go on hunts, treasure hunt, metal detect, and see different things, search areas that they wanted to search. It just opened up a lot of doors, and I'm very, very fortunate, and I thank God that I've had the opportunity to do what I'm doing within the hobby.
Right. Which does bring to light, I guess, one more question. With as many years as you have had in the hobby, do you find possibly having regrets? I mean, like for me, I always tell people, the only thing that I kind of regret is that I didn't get involved sooner.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, I don't know if I could call it a regret. Maybe it's a regret. Yeah, I wished I had started sooner when I was stationed out west in Arizona during the 60s.
Oh.
Because I did not get started until I was discharged and I came back to the east. But there's a lot of history out there that I want to get into that I wish I could have got into back then.
I can see where, the old ghost towns and mining towns and claims and such.
Yeah, some of the old stagecoach trails, some of those, I would have loved to have hunted some of those areas there.
Right, I completely agree.
Especially back then when I had more energy. Because it does get a little bit harder every year trudging through the woods with a metal detector in the pack in the heat, trying to find a site, and then by the time you get there, you're huffing and puffing, and, you get tired detecting, and then you got to walk back. So, the older I get, it gets a little bit harder, but I still go out.
Right, you got to kind of allow yourself the reserve for the trip back to the vehicle.
Yeah, yep.
I know how it can go sometimes.
Yeah. But other than that, no regrets really. Like I said, I've been very, very fortunate. I've met some great people. I've had great opportunities come my way. It's provided me with, I can honestly say I make an income out of metal detecting. There's not too many people that can say that.
Exactly.
And that was always a dream of mine. But again, taking the chance on the TV show, that's what started it all. That TV show it led from one thing to another and opened up more doors for me. So it's, I'm very fortunate.
Well, and that's great to hear, really it is. And I, for one, wish you many more years of good health and experience with it, sir.
Well, thank you, and you the same too. I commend you for you getting out there and doing what you do with. I don't want to say it's a disability, but having being sight impaired. That to me is what you're doing and the way you do it. That to me is just if that's not an inspiration for others to get out there and try this hobby, there should be no excuses for anybody.
Right.
So I commend you.
Well, I thank you very much. Very kind of you, and I guess our friend Mr. Ferriello was right on the money when he said you would be an absolutely great guest to speak with. I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of the experiences you've had.
Well, yeah. I want to have to thank Jim. I appreciate the fact that he did mention my name. I enjoyed it. I hope that the listeners, got the information that they wanted and more. It's, you and I am sure could go on talking for another 2 hours, another hour and a half, another 2 hours. It's a fascinating hobby and I enjoy talking about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love talking shop with anybody, especially the longtime veterans such as yourself. I should probably... We are probably getting about to the end of our rope, though, because I do still have to do some packing before the big event this weekend.
Wow.
But I do certainly appreciate you taking the time to be on with us tonight.
Well, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been, well, basically in a nutshell, quite a pleasure, actually. A lot of information. You have just had a phenomenal amount of experience in the hobby, and maybe we'll be fortunate enough that you've had a fair enough time with it tonight that you may be receptive to coming back sometime.
Yeah, it's anytime, Josh. I mean, if you'd like me to come back, I don't have a problem. As long as I know in advance.
Right. Well, you're a busy guy.
Yeah. Anytime, I would appreciate it. You were a pleasant host, and I enjoyed it tremendously.
All right. Well, hang in there with me for a minute, Frank. We're going to roll the music and get out of here. For the listeners.
Okay. I'd like to thank your listeners, too, for listening in.
Yes. For the listeners, we appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, by all means, like, rate the channel, throw some stars. You know the drill. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed the show. Next week, who knows? We may be talking about our experiences at the Big Dig. Or, you never know, always keep them guessing. Beyond Sight and Sound may go live for a special broadcast Saturday from our location. We'll see how it goes. But we've got to get around and get packed, so we thank everyone for dropping in, folks. Frank, hang in there with me. We're going to roll out of here. We'll see you next week.
Okay.